Hallo miteinander, I'm Geshi86, and this is the Disappearing of Gensokyo. Last time, we took Suika by the horns. It was such unnecessary violence, but you can't deny it was fun. We're off to the human village. This is not the human village, is it? Apparently, there are complications with the Dimensional Lake's teleportation function. We can't skip over this curious desert. Gensokyo does not have a desert. If you want a desert in your fan game, you must either say that it takes place in the book world, or that the desert is part of the incident. The second option is what's happening here. What is this? Penguins? Penguins that are shamelessly advertising DLC, no less. After slaying just one group of them, we get to a moment I have been waiting for. It's Marisa Kirisame, one of the most typical protagonists in Touhou. After a few verbal jabs, the conversation quickly shifts towards her recruitment. How is the ordinary magician so cooperative? The reason will be revealed in a moment. It is, of course, Alice. Marisa is sweating buckets when thinking of such a fragile girl facing all these dangers. Yeah, we know the thought of tender, fragile girls makes Marisa sweat. That's the kind of person she is. We agree to help in finding Alice. In exchange, Marisa will not subject herself to anything weird, no. She will lend us her power. It is similar to how we were looking for Cherno on Mystia's behalf. There's the Yukuri. I remember a negative Steam review that said nothing except that Marisa's conversational artwork was ugly. I do not agree with that at all. She's fine. After disposing of another new enemy type, some hostile spirits, we are once again stopped in our tracks by someone called Celestial B. I do not remember meeting a Celestial A anywhere. Whatever, we learn of our main objective for Stage 5 here. In order to overcome the teleportation interference, we must install a mystical orb within this desert. Said orb will be carried by the Celestial Servant Girl, and that means something for us that nobody asked for. Another escort mission. And not just any old one, this is the round of babysitting that I failed at before. Unlike Kogasa, who somewhat sought your proximity, this NPC will blindly walk into any kind of danger. We have Marisa's mighty laser to prevent that, as well as her star-shaped bomb. This bomb works somewhat like Cherno's, except rather than freezing on impact, the magic stays as a hazard and will continuously damage enemies. Right there we could see a magic piece on a hill. We cannot afford the luxury of chasing after it now. That would be stupid. All our attention is focused on the helpless Celestial. Marisa's bomb is not the reason why I find her as great as I do. It's a decent bomb overall, but the kleptomanic witch's strength comes mostly from her lasers. You keep them up by holding the left mouse button down, and from there you can just sweep them through the hostile forces. The damage per second and range of this attack are amazing. You can shoot further with it than what you see on screen. Here's a critical spot. If you miss both bombers advancing on the Celestial while she crosses the canyon bridge, she is toast. As I was saying, Marisa's laser can hit off-screen targets. That is why you want to utilize the radar in the top left corner. Charging up my beam against foes who haven't even spotted me is one of my most common strategies in DOG. Such a sneak attack may be playing a little dirty, but it's oh so effective. The stone circle that is coming into view is where our escort ends. Can one last advertising penguin foil our plans? No, he could not. His last words were, "You think you can be stronger than a pay-to-win player?" MyACG should be careful throwing stones in their glass house. After all, the DLC characters of this game are strong, suspiciously strong. With the checkpoint activated, rather than following the mission goal, we start free roaming. Blasting this new enemy here makes it drop our first magic piece of today. We are going to learn more about that breed of fairy in the next episode. Stage 6 is themed around them. The magic piece itself is also a very special one that relatively few people get on their first run through this level. See, the Celestial takes one of two routes towards the stone circle. Which one she takes, I don't think you can influence. It's all a virtual dice roll that DOG makes at some point. The fairy that drops the magic piece will only be present on one of these routes, the one we rolled. Luck was on our side then. Luck almost wasn't on our side there. I did not see that bomber in time. He and the previous swarming of penguins were the first to reduce our shield to 0. We were very close to death in that moment. That's the second magic piece. It was the one we were able to spot during the escort. Good thing we kept it in mind. Stage 5 is pretty intriguing in how wide open it feels. All the levels before had more of a corridor after corridor structure. This desert really comes across as very vast, which is impressive, but also kind of empty. That's a little less impressive. No enemy groups are placed just for the sake of placing them. Fighting only becomes necessary in a few hotspots. It's fortunate that I know where these are, because combing the desert like we're from planet Spaceball is kind of boring and would waste a lot of time. The southeastern corner hides the last magic piece, but it's not one to be surrendered easily. We must battle multiple ricochet fairies in an enclosure that couldn't be more advantageous to them. Boy, that's the second time today we fall into the critical zone. It's best to just run away like a scaredy cat. This third magic piece will always be where it's meant to be. The game never again pulls such a stunt where you get a magic piece by random chance or you don't. I am glad that's the case, because on my maiden playthrough I had searched and searched to no avail, when in reality it just wasn't possible to find on that attempt. I had to pull up a walkthrough to understand what I was doing wrong. Just as we were about to leave for the exit, someone stops us. Who is it? It looks like it's Alice, who is going through a goth phase with her new red and black style, but Tenshi at least is not that gullible. Marissa, 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 I love you. Let's die together. I think someone's been listening to Villevalo too much. How about we don't join her in death today? Black Alice, as she is called, can deploy floating doll mines and will attack with dark magic that moves in a wave-like pattern. I don't find her type that hard to deal with, evidenced by the fact that she's long gone. With that, the stage is also over. we return to the Azure Fortress with our newest guest, Marissa. She has the means to drive the story forward, as we will soon find out. That is, if Tenshi can be convinced of her worth. Right now, our protagonist belittles the ordinary magician for not being an ascended creature, but a human with all of their flaws. The newcomer shall become a member of our team. Iku says so. She is firm in grabbing authority there. Marissa had to deal with the sinsack infestation before we caught up to her, and has gathered her own impressions on the way. She is about to share that intel, and this is the point of the story that reveals what a sinsack is. I've already told you on the very first episode, they are modern-day people with very little restraint, the ones who give you way too much information. We also have the Touhou imposter phantoms mentioned here, of which we have just met a new specimen. You can bet there will be more. From the nature of our opponents, we deduce that the villain has to be an outsider. No Gensokyan who is stuck living here could profit from all of this chaos. Our main goal stays the same, finding Reimu and Yukari. Marissa did end up having some impressive information. She is truly awesome here. When I said that Cherno was my runner-up character of choice, guess who's always been number one? Yeah, and now she's available to us. We learn of our next immediate objective here. Defeating creatures of the desert that are somehow disrupting Heaven's radar. Are you a 3-year-old? That is a valid question to ask our Tenshi. Mentally she might be, physically, well, no, but we'll talk about that some other time. Her maturity is a peculiar subject. Suddenly, Iku requires personal belongings of Alice. Luckily, Marissa happens to have some hair and a handkerchief of the puppeteer with her. Those are strange and suspicious things to carry with you. What else do you have, girl? Her lipstick? Iku's heart rate can apparently go up to 160 a minute when she's worried about Tenshi. That's coming on quite strongly. Canonical Iku does not actually care about Tenshi. It's one of those typical situations where both characters debuted in the same game, so the fandom feels obligated to do something with them. We are going to talk to Iku again, after which we will see a new oddity within the character overview. That is, after another round of quarreling and threatening has taken place between these harpies. Will there ever be harmony in Bavagra? I would not bet on it. It's good that we have so many point icons, because there is a green bar labeled available under Marissa. If we don't spend 400 here, Marissa's Yukuri will not actually drop randomly within levels. Nor will she be selectable as a loadout before a stage begins. Marissa is the first girl such a fee needs to be paid for. There will be others in the future, and it is a strategic decision whether you even want those new characters. There are some really sweet blacksmith upgrades to Marissa. One decreases the charge-up time of the laser, which is indeed uncomfortably long by default. The other path boosts our movement speed. Unfortunately, they currently cost too much. So, I think it's time for a little recap of Stage 5. It's a pretty remarkable stage, but not exclusively for positive reasons. It can really get on your nerves when it either kills you or the faceless celestial bee. Oh Cherno, you and your bad sense of direction. At least she's much better at fighting than finding her way. But yeah, that you sometimes get all magic pieces of this scenario and sometimes you don't is pretty absurd. I hope I remember to zoom in on Yoshika and Byakuren one day. One more oddity about the DLC penguins. On a previous patch, there was a bug that got the dialogue window stuck on the desert's very first penguin. Although ultimately harmless, it was an obnoxious glitch, and I'm glad it got fixed before the Let's Play even started. It would have put the game in a worse light than it deserved. With that, I'm Geshe86, this was the Disappearing of Gensokyo, and next time, 3 Maleficents better than the one in her own movie. Bis bald!